Hey everybody, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 just had its premiere screenings, and the folks at Disney were kind enough to set up a special screening for some of us here in Las Vegas at CinemaCon for the latest addition to the MCU. So, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a movie that, for a while there, looked like it would never get made. While the first two films were supersized hits and made a star out of Chris Pratt, writer-director James Gunn's career went into a tailspin following the second film's release. After some tweets from his past resurfaced, Disney fired him, and had the cast not banded together to reinstate him, we might never have gotten a fitting end to this trilogy. Oh, how times have changed, with Gunn not only reinstated by Disney, but also on his way to DC, where he just might become a Kevin Feige-esque figure in his own right. Yet, before he becomes a mogul, Gunn clearly had some unfinished business with the Guardians of the Galaxy, with him opting to close out his trilogy with an epic length and surprisingly dark entry. It's unique in the MCU canon in that it's wholly independent of anything else in the Marvel Universe. Don't expect any references to Kang or the Avengers here. The only references are to the two other Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and of course Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, which essentially killed off Zoe Saldana's Gamora, only to resurrect an alternate version of her.
Because her dad threw her off a magic cliff and she died, and then I lost my temper and nearly destroyed half the universe.
When the movie starts, Peter Quill, once again played by Chris Pratt, is a self-pitying wreck following the death of his Gamora, while the new one is a Ravager and is being mentored by Sylvester Stallone's Stacker. Eventually, the Guardians of the Galaxy have to team up with her when Rocket Raccoon is badly injured by Adam Warlock, played by Will Poulter, who works for Chukwudi Iwuji's High Evolutionary, who created Rocket and wants him back. Luckily, this threat to his best friend shakes Quill out of his stupor, meaning Pratt is once again a driven, swashbuckling Star-Lord before long. If the movie belongs to anyone, it's Bradley Cooper's Rocket Raccoon, who gets a heartbreaking backstory that Gunn wisely cuts up into chunks, as it would be too much of a bummer to take in all at once. The movie delivers a strong message against animal testing, with Rocket and his furry friends going through brutal surgeries that push the boundaries of making this family entertainment. Kids are going to have a very tough time with some of this, and I could hear plenty of adults in the screening I saw this in weeping. However, all this serves a purpose as it gives the movie an urgency the others haven't had, and makes the High Evolutionary one of the most evil villains in Marvel history. Also different from the other movies is that all the Guardians share equal screen time with no de facto lead. Everyone has a strong arc, from Dave Bautista's hulking but gentle Drax, Palm Clementieff's Mantis, Vin Diesel's Groot, and Karen Gillan's Nebula, who's now officially part of the team. Like the other films, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is filled with perfect needle drop tracks, although now that Peter has a Zune with music from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the soundtrack opens up a little bit. Expect to hear everything from Radiohead to The Flaming Lips to Bruce Springsteen, the Florence and the Machine, and much, much more. If I have any quibbles, it's that at 150 minutes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a lot of movie, and a lengthy section on an alternative version of Earth feels too episodic and drawn out. Will Poulter's Adam Warlock also has a relatively small part, mainly serving as a comedic foil outside of the opening act, although no doubt there are plans for him down the road. Overall, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the best Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame, and now I know a lot of you are rolling your eyes because if you've looked on Twitter or read other reviews, they've all said exactly the same thing. And sure enough, some of you will point at the recent positive reviews that we've given other Marvel movies and raise your eyebrows. Here's the thing. I essentially stopped reviewing Marvel movies last summer because, while I respected that people loved them, they stopped really having much of an effect on me. I gave Thor: Love and Thunder a very positive review, but I have to say, I was kind of lost when I was writing my review, and I felt like in some ways I was catering my review to what I thought Marvel fans would think, and that was a mistake in hindsight, I think, because really I wasn't true to myself. I was thinking of how the movie would be received by Marvel fans, and I thought it was a really good addition to the franchise for a Marvel fan. But of course, audiences themselves didn't really like it very much. So at that point, I kind of hung up my pen and, well, stopped reviewing Marvel movies. And I have to say, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, I enjoyed for what it was, although I thought it was quite a bit inferior to the first one, and was saddled with some very bad MCU world building that I'm sure that Ryan Coogler was forced to include. And the less said about Ant-Man Quantumania, the better. I really did not care for it. I avoided writing a review for that one because, hey, in all honesty, I hated it so much that I didn't want to be too much of a bummer for the hardcore MCU fans that visit us. The thing is, people are still very excited about these movies, and I guess in some ways, I wasn't really doing my job as a critic, was I? I probably should have, because, well, Quantumania just wasn't very good. However, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, while not perfect, is still a very entertaining addition to the genre, working as a space opera independent of the MCU, and I really do hope you'll take my word for it. It's impressive that they gave Gunn the leeway to do this. So, is this the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy? Somehow I doubt it. While James Gunn is definitely finished with it for a while, there's nothing truly definitive about where the movie leaves off, so someone could easily make a go of it. That said, I doubt anyone will do it with the vigor and passion that Gunn has pumped into it. Outside of Ryan Coogler, it does feel like the directors no longer put a personal stamp on these Marvel movies, which is a shame because I think Marvel is kind of going for journeyman directors. Gunn's passion for the characters is what makes this really good, and I do hope that if this movie is a success, financially and critically, Marvel will look at it and hire perhaps directors that are more passionate about the material than they are right now. We need more people like James Gunn and Ryan Coogler, and of course the Russo brothers directing these kinds of movies. The MCU is far from doomed. I mean, they've got so many movies coming out, and I'm sure that a lot of them will be very good, but something has kind of gone wrong in Phase 4, and hopefully they're able to right the ship before long. That said, I give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 a very solid 8 out of 10.